It's June 20th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the summit between Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin. The two leaders of North Korea and Russia have sealed a comprehensive strategic partnership treaty. The latest deal includes assisting one another if either is under attack. South Korea is now officially under a state of emergency due to a worsening population decline. President Yoon Suk-yeol ordered the expansion of public childcare and priority for newlyweds when purchasing a newly built home. The first heatwave advisory of the summer was issued here in Seoul on Wednesday, with the capital city bearing temperatures as high as 35 degrees Celsius. The scorching heat will continue to stick around on Thursday. North Korea's Kim Jong-un and Russia's Vladimir Putin have brought bilateral ties to a higher level based on this comprehensive strategic partnership. That's a promise to back one another in case of aggression from another country. Our Choi Min-jung starts us off.
The leaders of North Korea and Russia agreed to elevate their relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin inked the agreement on Wednesday following their summit in Pyongyang. According to Sputnik News, Putin said the agreement implies mutual assistance in case of aggression against either of the participants. He added that Russia does not exclude the development of military technical cooperation with North Korea in connection with the partnership. According to Reuters, Kim said the relationship between the two sides was raised to an alliance, implying that the countries would expand military cooperation as well. He stressed, however, that the agreement was peaceful and defensive in nature, adding he has no doubt that it will become the driving force accelerating the creation of a new multipolar world. Such agreement adds fuel to the fire as Pyongyang and Moscow's military cooperation, which developed since Kim's meeting with Putin in Russia last September, has already sparked global security concerns. Putin also called for a review of indefinite sanctions against North Korea by the UN Security Council, saying that the restrictive measures were inspired by the US and its allies. Prior to the signing, Kim and Putin sat down for a summit. Putin appreciated North Korea's consistent and unwavering support for Russian policy, including on Ukraine. Kim then expressed the regime's full support and solidarity with Russia in conducting military operations in Ukraine.
North Korea expresses full support for the Russian government's special military operation in Ukraine to protect its sovereignty, interests, and the stability of its territory.
The two also discussed ways to strengthen their bilateral ties, as Putin mentioned a new fundamental document.
Last year, as a result of your visit to Russia, we made significant progress in building up our relations. Today, a new fundamental document has been prepared that will outline the basis of our relationship over the long term.
Putin expressed his intention of meeting with Kim again, saying he hopes this will be held in the Russian capital. The Russian leader arrived in North Korea early Wednesday morning for his first state visit since 2000. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
And Washington is voicing concerns over deepening ties between Pyongyang and Moscow, while Beijing stays rather reticent. Now, experts say China may be left with some conflicted feelings about it. Kim Bo-kyung reports.
Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in North Korea for his first visit in 24 years, pledging strong support for the regime. This, an expert says, could make the United States worried about two aspects: peace and stability on the Korean peninsula and the war in Ukraine.
The US would be most worried about how North Korea's munitions could be used for the Ukraine war and prevent Washington from ending it. In terms of the Korean peninsula, there will also be worries about North Korea's striking power, as its nuclear and missile capabilities could get a boost.
These words are reflected in what Washington officials have had to say regarding Putin's visit to Pyongyang.
What we are concerned about, Trevor, is the deepening relationship between these two countries. Not just because of the impacts it's going to have on the Ukrainian people, because we know North Korean ballistic missiles are still being used to hit Ukrainian targets, but because there could be some reciprocity here that could affect security on the Korean peninsula.
The deepening cooperation between Russia and the DPRK is something that should be of concern. especially to anyone that's interested in maintaining peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula, but also supporting the people of Ukraine as they continue to fight against Russian aggression.
Thus, Jean-Pierre, the White House spokeswoman, has urged Putin to convey to Kim that only political and diplomatic ways should be used to resolve issues on the Korean Peninsula, as he agreed during the previous summit with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Meanwhile, media outlets have focused on how China could be left with conflicted feelings as Russia and North Korea's rapprochement deepens. Though China does recognize how inevitable it is for Russia and North Korea to become cozier with each other due to sanctions imposed by the U.S., and Beijing itself has been able to ease the pressure of having to provide international cover for Pyongyang, it cannot help but worry for their deepening bilateral ties because of the U.S.
China does say a boost in North Korea-Russia ties is because of United States, but Beijing cannot welcome their growing ties fully because it could lead to Washington's increased military involvement on the Korean Peninsula.
Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The South Korean government has condemned North Korea for their military spy satellite launch program at a UN meeting held to discuss peaceful uses of outer space. During the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space meeting held in Vienna, South Korea's ambassador to Austria, Ham Sang-uk, told UN member states that reconnaissance satellite launches by the North are a violation of Security Council resolutions. He added that the North's sanctions actions are illegal and deceptive, and emphasized the importance of the international community remaining united on the matter. Last month, North Korea failed in an attempt to launch a military spy satellite, but claims to have successfully launched a satellite last November. Leaders of North Korea and Russia vow to support one another if either is under attack. Now, to what extent will this cooperation go? We're joined by Professor Park Won-kwon this morning. Good to have you back.
Hello. Good morning.
Let's jump right into it. How much of an upgrade is this for Pyongyang-Moscow relations?
Well, overall, at this very moment, we are not 100% sure because they are not fully released the full contents of the treaty. So one sentence that available at this moment is that the Russian TASS and Interfax news agency mentioned that, quote, through the comprehensive partnership agreement signed today, it was stated that mutual assistance would be provided if either country is invaded. That's it. So we haven't had any idea and any specific information about the preconditions, procedures, and what kind of mutual assistance. But I can say that it is much upgrade because they proclaim that they are finally achieved some kind of a comprehensive strategic partnership. And year 2000, when North Korea has a treaty with Russia, at that time they proclaimed that their relationship is simply friendly relations. So it is much higher level after 24 years.
So not too many details released on this treaty. That's why it's also a concern that this treaty may indicate this automatic military intervention. Professor Park, what's your take on this?
Yes, exactly. That's the most worrisome. If the automatic military intervention is a very serious challenge to South Korea, the automatic military intervention means that if one party is attacked by the other, and the other party shall immediately provide military and all other assistance using all means at its disposal. So actually, this kind of automatic interventions been found in the Article 1 in 1961 treaty between, at the time, USSR, Soviet Union, and North Korea. But since then, in 1996, they are simply, discard all these clauses. But if they finally decided to have this automatic military intervention, it's a very serious challenge. And I think at this moment, I said that we haven't had any kind of the contents of the treaty, but I can say that it's far more improved and it's almost like the alliance treaty. And because the mutual assistance in the case of the military the conflict, and definitely it very clearly mentioned that Russia will provide some kind of military means. Of course, we haven't know that any specific what kind of military the assistance that Russia provided to North Korea, but it is true that, and then this criteria itself haven't been seen yet, but it is true that it's definitely some military means.
Definitely. Indeed, a much threat to the Korean Peninsula and to regional security as a whole. And what's notable about the summit is that Kim Jong-un called Moscow an ally multiple times, whereas Putin didn't. Now, does that mean North Korea is more desperate to make their relations tighter?
Well, it's very interesting kind of statements made by both Putin and Kim Jong-un. You are right. And Kim Jong-un, at least more than 3 times, he called the relationship between North Korea and Russia as alliance, whereas the Putin haven't mentioned it at all. But Putin also, at the same time, he did not revoke or he did not deny this Kim Jong-un's statement of the alliance of the relationship between these two countries. So I think it's kind of a tacit acceptance of the relationship between these two countries. We will see.
Let's talk about China. What is China thinking? I mean, China has been pretty quiet on this issue, saying Putin's North Korea visit is a matter for Moscow and Pyongyang. And, some experts say China may be unhappy about them, bringing their relations to a whole new level. The question is China really bothered?
Yes, I strongly believe that China is really bothered by this very close cooperation between Russia and North Korea because of the Ukraine war. And the intensify the so-called strategic competition between United States and China. China definitely need more the enhanced cooperation, enhanced relationship with the European countries. But problem is that at this moment, the cooperation between Russia and North Korea is about the Ukraine war. So in that sense, the European country will consider North Korea as also very serious and existential threat to them. So that's why China is trying to have some distance to this close cooperation between Russia and North Korea.
Definitely. All right, Professor Bach, thank you so much for the analysis this morning. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
The UN on Wednesday pointed out that Israel may have repeatedly violated the laws of war by using massive explosives provided by the U.S. in densely populated areas in Gaza. Lee Seung-jae has more.
A report by the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights released on Wednesday says the Israeli military dropped precision-guided bombs manufactured in the United States into the Gaza Strip that may have violated the laws of war. The report indicates that in the first months of the conflict between Israel and Hamas, there were 6 cases in which the Israel Defense Forces used explosive weapons with wide area effects, including 2,000-pound bombs in civilian neighborhoods. The attacks led to at least 218 civilian deaths. The UN report also noted that on December 2, 2023, the Israeli military destroyed 15 buildings and killed at least 60 civilians when the IDF was targeting a single senior Hamas commander. In addition, out of the 6 cases mentioned, the report says 5 of the strikes came without any warning from Israel. The military is said to have used 3 different types of precision-guided bombs manufactured in the United States, with the UN report emphasizing that the use of a weapon that has such wide-ranging impact in a densely populated area could be considered a crime against humanity. Meanwhile, Israel's foreign minister has warned of an all-out war with Hezbollah and vowed to prepare for all possibilities. The remarks came after Hezbollah released videos of sensitive Israeli military sites and civilian areas. Foreign Minister Israel Katz said Israel is very close to the moment of decision to change the rules against Hezbollah and Lebanon, adding that in an all-out war, Hezbollah will be destroyed and Lebanon will be severely hit. Analysts warn that the daily clashes between Israel and the militant group are reaching a tipping point and could potentially escalate into a full-fledged war. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's population decline, mostly caused by its notorious low birth rate, is so problematic that the issue will now be viewed as a national emergency. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
A population state of emergency has been officially declared in South Korea, with the government expecting the fertility rate to fall to 0.65 in 2025.
저는 오늘 인구 국가 비상사태를 선언하고 저출생 문제를 극복하는 그날까지 범국가적 총력 대응 체계를 가동할 것입니다.
This coming as President Yoon Suk-yeol on Wednesday presided over a presidential committee on aging society and population policy meeting, the second time to do so. The president added that 3 areas will be the focus of the government's all-out efforts: work and family life balance, childcare, and housing. For work and family balance, the government aims to up the current rate of dads taking paternity leave to 50% from current 6.8. For this, the government will financially support companies temporarily losing employees while upping the first 3 months of the government's parental leave pay to a maximum of 2.5 million Korean won, or about $1,800 from current $1,000. The government is also expanding public childcare programs so children aged from 3 to 5 will receive free education and care. Lastly, for housing, newlyweds and couples with newborns will receive financial support while being prioritized when purchasing a newly built home. But that's not all.
저출생은 이런 양립, 양육, 주거 3대 핵심 분야 이외에도 수도권 집중과 같은 사회 구조적 요인과 경쟁 압력, 높은 불안과 같은 사회 문화적 요인이 복합적으로 얽혀 있습니다. 특히 우리 사회의 과도하고 불필요한 경쟁 문화를 바꿔서 더 여유 있고 성숙한 사회가 될 수 있도록 노력해야 합니다.
President Yoon has called the current low birth rate a national emergency before and said he will create a new ministry for this and have its minister be the Deputy Prime Minister for Social Affairs, a role the current education minister holds, showing the new role's significant power and responsibility. But the creation of a new ministry will need the support of the opposition-led parliament, which is always an uphill battle. Meanwhile, before the meeting, he took time to visit a child care center run by a company in Gyeonggi-do province where the meeting was held too. He spoke to children and teachers there to see what's needed. By law, companies in South Korea with more than 300 full-time female workers or at least 500 full-time workers need to have their own child care centers. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The South Korean government on Thursday vowed to strengthen the competitiveness of the defense industry as it looks to support the development of material and component technologies in 5 key fields. The move is a part of the government's push to develop 60 core technologies in the 5 fields: space, artificial intelligence, man-unmanned teaming, robots, and semiconductors. Among the technologies being developed are cutting-edge aircraft engine materials for civil and military use and hybrid powertrains for next-generation tanks. Seoul's first heat wave advisory of the summer was issued on Wednesday. Now, the capital will once again see temperatures as high as 35 degrees Celsius today. Lee Hoon-hee reports.
With the heat expected to last a bit longer, temperatures in Seoul reached 35 degrees on Wednesday, marking the peak for this summer so far. Heatwave advisories are issued when the highest feels-like temperature is expected to reach 33 degrees Celsius or higher for 2 consecutive days. Seoul's first heatwave advisory of the year has been in effect since Monday at 10 a.m. Let's hear from those who are outdoors braving the heat.
I like sleeveless clothes. The weather is extremely hot, almost scorching. Although air quality has improved compared to last year, the intense heat makes me feel like I'm in Europe.
Today I left the house without sunglasses or a parasol, and it's so hot that I'm starting to think outdoor activities might be difficult. So I think it would be better to cool off in an exhibition hall and enjoy some artwork indoors. It's really hot right now.
This year's heatwave advisory for Seoul was issued 1 day later than last year. The entire Seoul metropolitan area is now under a heatwave advisory, except for the city of Incheon. In other regions, the heat is more severe, including Goyang City in Gyeonggi-do Province, where the daytime high reached up to 37 degrees Celsius. Currently, a heatwave advisory has been issued for 92 regions across the country, predominantly in inland areas. Meanwhile, starting from Wednesday night, Jeju Island is expected to experience its first monsoon of the summer. Lee Eun-hee, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Seong, and now we turn off to stories from around the world. The Chinese Coast Guard on Wednesday defended its actions following a clash on Monday with the Philippines Navy resupply ship that resulted in a collision between the two sides. Manila accused the Chinese of aggressive behavior after several Filipino sailors were injured in the incident. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian said in a daily news briefing that the Chinese ship only took action because the Philippine ship was trespassing on the disputed Second Thomas Shoal. Lin said the Chinese Coast Guard took no direct measures as it moved to stop an illegal supply mission by a Philippine vessel. Prior to the Chinese statement, the Philippine Navy said on Tuesday that one sailor suffered a serious injury after the Chinese Coast Guard ship conducted intentional high-speed ramming before aiming its weapons and pointing strobe lights to threaten and harass Filipino sailors. The Philippines Navy stated that continued aggressive behavior and unprofessional conduct towards a legitimate humanitarian mission was unacceptable. A bipartisan U.S. congressional delegation met with the exiled Tibetan spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, in India on Wednesday, saying they would not let China exert any influence in the choice of his successor. The high-level delegation, led by Republican Congressman Michael McCaul and including Democratic former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, met with the Dalai Lama at his residence in Dharamsala to brief him on the Resolve Tibet Act passed by the U.S. Congress last week. The delegation added that the visit also aimed to encourage dialogue between the Dalai Lama and Chinese officials in the hope of working toward a peaceful resolution between Tibet and Beijing. After a failed uprising against Chinese rule in 1959, the Tibetan government has been in exile in India, while Beijing refuses to recognize autonomy for Tibet and hasn't held any talks with representatives of the Dalai Lama since 2010. The 88-year-old spiritual leader is expected to travel to the U.S. on Thursday for medical treatment on his knee, but has so far not announced any official meetings. Now to Russia and the far eastern city of Vladivostok, where a local court sentenced an American soldier arrested earlier this year to nearly 4 years in prison after he was found guilty of theft and making murder threats. According to Russian state news agency TASS, 34-year-old Staff Sergeant Gordon Black was sentenced to 3 years and 9 months in prison and ordered to pay some $115 in damages. U.S. authorities said Black, who is married, flew to Vladivostok to see his girlfriend, who he met while stationed in Korea. His girlfriend, Alexandra Vaschuk, told reporters earlier this month that Black had attacked her before stealing money from her wallet. And finally to the UK, where protesters from the environmental group Just Stop Oil sprayed powder paint on a part of Stonehenge on Wednesday. Police arrested 2 people on suspicion of damaging the world-famous prehistoric megalithic structure. The protest, which occurred just ahead of summer solstice celebrations at the site, was slammed by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak as vandalism. Just Stop Oil say it took action as it wants the British government to end the extraction of and the use of fossil fuels by 2030.
Good morning. Unlike the scorching and sunny mainland, monsoon rain is pounding down on Jeju, as you can see behind me. Heavy showers are falling at 30 millimeters an hour with thunderstorms and strong winds, while a rain advisory has been issued on the island. The Jeju could see with up to 150 millimeters of showers through tomorrow morning. The south coast could see on and off a drizzle until tonight. Well, rain sounds amazing for us in central regions, but rather will continue to be under blazing sunshine. Many regions had record-breaking June warms yesterday, including here in Seoul, and central parts of the country will be as hot as yesterday, but there should be slight relief in southern provinces. So Daegu tops out at 32 degrees Celsius, Gwangju at 31 degrees. Readings should top out at 35 degrees in most of central areas. Unbearable heat continues in the capital through tomorrow, which is summer solstice. Then welcome heat relief is on its way. Take care during the scorcher. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up today's A New Day at Arirang. We will be back tomorrow for Friday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.